Alright, how's everybody doing out there? My name is Brian, and I wanted to make a video about the Twin Towers and looking at it from a construction point of view. Um, I was in the trades for over 20 years. I was an electrician. I've seen hospitals, done hospitals, high rises, mainly commercial applications where it's all neck size. Stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about the construction, and so here we go. Here's a picture, probably a break room somewhere in the building. When they would, after the building was built, when nothing was in here, they call them shells, but when they built the building, they would have to, all of this was finished. So, people talk about putting bombs in the walls or in the beams and stuff, and take a little bit of work just to get to the beams. Another. Now you see this and you can imagine if there's a fire in here, how devastating it could be. There's a bank of the elevators, and the elevators are important. They were part of the core, which was the last thing standing, and we'll see pictures. So kind of remember this for later. The sky lobby. The life in the towers, right? Again, with the fires, there was a sprinkler system. A lot of people maybe don't know, but there was a fire in I don't know which tower, but there was a fire in 1975. Somebody actually started it, and it was pretty bad. There was actually no sprinkler systems in these buildings until after that fire in 1975. Pretty interesting. But when the planes came in, knocked out all of the sprinkler systems going upstairs. This is the shell I was talking about. When the job was done, they would go around and cover all the beams. And like I said, this right here these are some of the beams, and you could see what is sprayed on here, which is I called it monocoat, but it's fireproofing, and we'll talk about more of that later. It's a picture of the core column. They would bring up the sides and bring up the core column, and the sizes got thinner as they went up because they didn't need as much load. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. Here's the elevators. You can see the type of elevators. I know elevators could only go so high. They could only go so many floors. So this is how they split it up. The engineering behind these buildings is amazing. Now this would be considered underground. This is the wall, Slurry Wall. It's 80 foot tall. Another picture of just people on what was going on in the towers. This wall. I thought I had these, but these pictures are kind of screwed up. So moving on. Look out the tower. This is a picture of a shell, and they were in there at this time scraping all the monocoat off. We'll talk about that more later also. Here's a picture of a elevator motor. It's amazing the size of this stuff. This is all part of where they would bring the water in from the river. They would actually This is actually where they would bring it in from the river, and it would all get changed over for heating and cooling for the building. Brilliant. It would be the air conditioners, if they had them on the roofs, they would be too big and it would take away from the building, to have something on the roof. So this is what they came up with. You could get the size of the piping. It's a river water supply. Pretty cool. Here's a gentleman that went down with the ship, project manager. He was probably down there, um, making sure everything was taken care of. Sure, they were having electrical issues down there, and um, there's something I'll talk about later with transfer switches and power still trying to get up the towers. Um, just the generators, I think there were 12 to keep everything running, and they had tanks also to keep uh, these generators running. This is pretty interesting. This is the machine that um, would go down the side of the building and clean the windows. The gentleman that built the building, the head engineer or architect, um, was afraid of heights, so he came up with this to go down the side of the building and clean the windows, so people don't have to hang off the side of the building. I guess it would take close to 6 months to do the whole building, one whole building. Pretty cool. This gentleman also probably was doing what he could, right? Here's a diagram, the slurry wall. They called this the basement. This is the tube for the trains, and the tie-back cables. We'll talk about that more. This is actually the slurry wall. You can see this, the slurry wall. This is the train, which never stopped. So they just built up from here, built up from the basement. They were down to bedrock. There's the bedrock there. Huge footers and forms and all that good concrete stuff. This is the part of the slurry wall, 80 foot. These things were massive, and they would put, I don't know how many around to make it basically a bathtub, but I don't know how wide they were, but 80 foot deep is no joke. Tiebacks. Some more pictures of the bathtub and train. The footers down at bedrock. Must have been really neat to see this bedrock, millions of years old, and that was part of the river at one time. So pretty neat. I don't know. The size of these plates. This is what the building was sitting on. You can see next to people. Gigantic. Building the building up closer to the wall. See the train. And we'll talk about the ceilings. These are very important and part of what happened in the collapse. This is what they would raise up. They'd bring the skin and the center core, and this would sit on the plates, and we'll talk more about that. So they would bring the skin up. You had your floor, and if you can imagine, these are what the floors were sitting on, 5 inches. So we're going to talk more about that. You can see how you'd say, oh my gosh, that's holding up a floor. Well, yeah, it's holding up the floor. and everything's fine until a plane comes in, and or a jet, which would hit the 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 jet that hit these buildings was 20% bigger than what they actually thought would hit could hit these buildings. And we'll talk more about these plates. So here is the diagram. So on the outer skin this here, that is this plate. And what was on the columns, the other side, they put a welded channel up and they put the joist on this. So if you could imagine a floor coming down on a floor, you think that and this is going to hold it up. You know, people talk about melting steel, and yeah, there was a lot of that happening, and you know, and then you have 4 inches of concrete on these floors. There's the skin going up the center columns. There's one of the A floor going up, and you could see here. Set them down on those plates and keep going up with the center columns. It's a good picture. They would bring this stuff in every day, because you can't store this stuff on the site. So I'm not sure where they had it, but again, the logistics behind getting this thing up is amazing. This is the pour. And these are the tracks that the machine would go down to clean the building, to clean the windows. Floor going up. Again, here are the plates that the floor sat on. And these are box beams. These weren't solid. They were just a box, and they would bring the pieces down and then bolt them together and then weld them. I like this picture because it just shows, you know, when we talk about the corner that first started the collapse, the ones that we can see, you know, it started from a corner, and just looking at these corners, they just look so fragile to hold up the building, you know. Again, there was no other building built like this. There are no other buildings built like this, so it was unique. It was a unique building, so it was a unique collapse. Here they are again, the what held the floors up. Here you can see he had the holes, bolt them together, and the guy would come and weld them together. There we go. And here's again with the corner. You know, when the planes came in, they both didn't come in. They came, at least the second one came in more off to the side, so it kind of ended up in a corner. The whole building, or the whole plane, ended up and you know, more so in the corner. So you had hotter fires out towards these corners. And here we go with the this is what was at the top of the building. This is called a hat truss, okay? And you can see how gigantic this thing was. And when they brought the skin up and brought the center columns up, they had to put it all together. So this is what basically was at the holding the whole building together. And I'm going to read a little bit from um, a website that got this from NIST, and I hope I don't lose you through it, but this is what it says. After the aircraft impact, gravity loads that were previously carried by severed columns were redistributed distributed to distributed to other columns. I'm going to keep going. The north wall lost about 7% of its load after impact. Most of the load was transferred by the hat truss, this here. And the rest was redistributed to the adjacent exterior walls by spandrels, which the spandrels are what these are going off in the directions kind of connecting everything. Due to the impact damage and the tilting of the building to the north after impact, the south wall also lost gravity load, and about 7% was transferred by the hat truss. As a result, the east and west walls and the core gained and redistributed loads throughout the hat truss. Now there's more to this in talking about percentages. Structural steel expands when heated in early stages of the fire. It talks about the differences in temperatures from the inside of the core to the outer part of the core. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I could put a link to the description at the bottom. This is interesting also. The inward bowing of the south wall caused failure to exterior column splices and spandrels, and these columns became unstable. The instability spread horizontally across the entire south face. The south wall, now unable to bear its gravity loads, redistributed these loads to the thermally weakened core through the hat truss and through the east and west walls through the spandrels. The building section above the impact zone became tilting to the south as the columns on the east and west wall rapidly became unable to carry the increased loads. This further increased the gravity loads on the core columns. Once the upper building section began to move downwards, the weakened structure in the impact zone and fire zone was not able to absorb the tremendous energy of the falling building section, and global collapse ensued. This is from the second building that was hit. You could see how when it came in, these are completely severed, and these are different rates of destruction. Partially, it got better towards back here, but you could see with these, you had a lot of gravity and the building wanting to stay up. Now you got the core columns, you got these this is part of the core column, and we're going to see more of that when the collapse happens. Building it. Now we're talking about after the well, I thought I had the pictures different, but well, I'm talking about the fireproofing right now. So this right here is taken from in this video. Company was in there scraping away all of the monocoat and spraying on new stuff. So when the planes came in, this stuff was already crappy to begin with after years and years of probably trades going in there, and there was probably something here at one point in a trade, took a beam clamp off or something and then put this patch on. And I don't know if I said, but the plane hitting the buildings, they talked about a lot of this stuff falling off. You could see It's already starting to show through. So when they shot this stuff originally, the codes were probably a lot different um, back then. I'm not sure exactly um, how long this stuff. Well, you could see here, the trades come in and they knock this stuff off and they don't fix it. And if you have a fire, you really think this stuff was gonna hold off a fire? It's horrible. Okay, see it, you know. There has to be so much on there for it to work. You got a building full of this stuff. Not good. There was something here once before. The guys didn't see, they're scraping it all off. We're talking about the collapse, I guess. This is interesting right here. It's a building coming down. Did it pop a little bit? So you have this with this. This is just one cubicle fires. Then everything's with the hat truss. Everything's on these brackets. A plane hits it, and you have this. This is the beginning of the collapse. And so all the weight just was on these columns, and you have the corner here, and these box beams just folded in and starts to collapse. So looking at these pictures here, what I'm looking for is the plates, and we're going to see that plates are all gone. I think for this, when the collapse happened, it pierced the center columns and just went straight down. These are very interesting because of the smoke after. You see the smoke coming up after the collapse from the center columns, and so looking at this one here, you can see the center column still standing. So the floors were just stripped away. There were fires in these in the elevators, and I have to imagine all of the equipment and the electrical and the plumbing and all of the fluid for the elevators. Is that this smoke coming up, shooting up? Because the fires were in there also. See the smoke shooting up right here. It's different from this smoke. This is concrete. It's just concrete and everything you can imagine. There again, center columns still standing. See the blowout and see these puffs of smoke. right here. Almost see maybe fire. Okay, so this is the first one. You could see the elevators. What was left of the elevators. You could see the the fire back here. Again, all of the fluid and electrical fires. See the elevator banks. Now here we're looking for the plates. You can see all the drywall ripped off, kind of far away. Here we can see that the plates are gone. Just broken. See the drywall ripped off. You can see that I can't get it over far enough. Okay. Looking for the plates. Not the best picture. But you can see here. Not really. Man, I can't move these pictures. I can't move the pictures good. Just went at daytime, looking at the broken here. You know, the floor on top of the floor just pancaked. We know there's a pancake because drywall's ripped off. So it all didn't blow out. I think the bottom line is these plates. Transfer switches. People were hearing some pops and booms. Could have been coming from some of the electrical systems. If transfers or transformers are blowing up, and it could sound like you know, bombs going off. So I thought this was a good picture. This is the entrance going into the basement, and this has already been going on, and you can see there's no smoke coming out from going into the basement. So, you know, I know there's people said they heard things in the basement, but again, there's a lot of systems in there. There was fuel, and their tanks could have been blowing up and stuff like that. That's it. This is the end. I hope you maybe got something out of seeing the construction and um, a little bit behind, with the fires and seeing, I don't want, people say fuel melt or metal doesn't melt. I don't think stuff was melting necessarily. I think stuff was bending, and um, and once that started happening, the building just came down. Again, it's a unique building, a unique situation. Got to look at it like that. So, rest rest in peace to everybody that lost their lives on that day, and all the people that this affected. I know it affected me. So, everybody take care. Bye.